I believe we are. Welcome to our class. I don't think David has said we could start, but if you want to start, we're happy to have you here. Our students have a lot of questions for you. So.
Sorry, getting the phone set up here.
Right.
Okay. Good deal.
If they need a mic check.
Yep, I'm good. I think you guys are good too.
Okay. All right.
All right. Well, thanks so much for having me, guys. It's nice to meet you. And Carol, I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your last name, but it's a pleasure for me to be here. My name's Dylan Doty, and I'm a lobbyist, and I have been for, I guess this is my 10th year doing this down here in Olympia. Before that, I worked over in the other Washington, over in Washington, D.C. for a while for a congressman. And I have to tell you, I like this one a lot better out here. It's nice to be home and doing work here. So I'm happy to be here and happy to talk with you all about some of the issues that are going on here in Olympia this year. So Carol, I don't know, you want to kick us off a little bit with a couple of questions or topics?
Well, I think that the students have a lot of questions for you, and they're eager to speak to you themselves. So,
looking forward to it.
Yeah, we have a whole list of students. So, Corey, do you want to?
Hello, my name is Corey, and what's your favorite part of being a lobbyist?
Hi, Corey. My favorite part about being a lobbyist is that I get to be out and about talking to people all day, not stuck behind a desk all day and reading and pushing paper. And really, I get to work on policies that I care about without it being something that, well, I'll answer it this way. I used to be a staff person for a congressman out in Washington, D.C. And when you work on policy as a staff person, you're kind of limited by what your boss wants to do. Now, as a contract lobbyist, I get to work on policies that I enjoy by finding clients that I want to work with. And so I get to choose the policies and the issues that I work on. And I get to do it in a manner that's a lot more fun than most of the people that I went to law school with, who are stuck in an office sitting behind a desk all day. So that's what I like most about this.
What are your favorite policies to sponsor?
So I'm a contract lobbyist, and I understand that you guys watched the short video about lobbying, correct?
Yes.
So you know that contract lobbyists have a number of different clients. And I have about 15 different clients right now. And that's normal for me. I have anywhere normally from about 10 to 15 clients at a given time. And some of those are clients that I've had for years and years. And one of those, for instance, is the Washington Fire Chiefs Association. I like working on fire policy. I think that that's a lot of fun. We get to impact some of the state policies for what firefighters end up doing. You know, whether it's wildfires out in Eastern Washington or whether it's just local ways to improve fire service. I also work with tribes. I represent the Muckleshoot Indian tribe, which is down in Auburn. And working on tribal policy is really interesting because tribes, as you may know, are sovereign governments and they have their own government structure. And so when I work with the state, we work on everything, whether it's education policy or health care or law and justice issues. And so those are some of my favorites that I get to work on.
Thank you.
You bet.
Hi, I'm Ian.
Hi, Ian.
So we both know that today they're going to be working on the net neutrality bills in Olympia in committee. Mm-hmm. So I noticed that there's a lot of people sponsoring this bill. Why do you think so many people are pitching in on this? It's
a really big issue. So when the federal government came down and changed their rules on net neutrality, about a month or so ago, I guess, a lot of people here in Washington, their very first question is, what can we do to protect the net neutrality rules that we want to see in place, that used to be in place at the federal level? And a lot of the folks that have signed on to that bill, or actually there are more than one bill, there's more than one bill on the topic this year, but all of those folks signed on shows that there's a big willingness to really push back against the federal decision on that topic. And a lot of people here in Washington, we've got a very strong tech community, as you know, here in Washington, whether it's Microsoft or Amazon, others here, and they are really interested in showing that we here in Washington want to be leaders on that issue. And anytime you see a bill that's got a lot of co-sponsors on it, you know that it's a big issue.
Yeah, so you said that you were a contract lobbyist. Do you happen to, contract for any of the companies that are big techs, that are big like tech companies that
Sure.
might have a lot of opinions on this issue?
So I don't do telecom lobbying right now. My partner does some local work for CenturyLink, which is one of the companies that's really engaged on this topic. CenturyLink, of course, is an internet provider, telephone provider as well. But a lot of my other clients are interested in this for other reasons. And so you have topics like net neutrality that aren't just limited to the tech companies. You have a lot of different types of interests that are going to be stepping up on this topic. I represent an outfit called the Port of Bremerton, and public ports are really interested in broadband and telecom, for instance, being able to possibly provide that service in rural areas where a lot of these big companies aren't providing access, whether it's Comcast or CenturyLink. And so topics like this, Ian, actually touch on a lot of different areas, not just the big tech companies that you would normally think of as being interested.
Yes, so I know that, this is a big issue, but is it a bipartisan issue? Are both parties coming together and trying to really work on this?
They are. This is going to be a bipartisan issue. It's not just a Democrat or Republican issue to have strong net neutrality laws. And you actually saw in the federal sector a lot of folks from across the party aisles weighing in, saying we don't want these rules to be changed at the federal level. And I know a lot of people weren't very happy with President Trump and the decision to move away from some of those net neutrality rules. And so while you see mainly Democrats pushing this issue, it is a bipartisan issue, and it's not necessarily a Democrat versus Republican thing.
Thank you. I appreciate your time.
That
Hi, my name's Ella, and I was wondering what your educational experience was in becoming a lobbyist.
Well, so I grew up in Paulsbo. I don't know if anyone knows where Paulsbo is over in Kitsap County. It's a ferry ride away from downtown Seattle. And I went to school out there. I went to the University of Washington for undergraduate work, and I majored in political science. I like to joke that it's the one true science. Not so much biology, but I like political science. And I got a job working in Washington, D.C. right out of college. Got a job for Congressman Adam Smith, who represents the 9th District here in Washington, which is the South King County, Pierce County area. And I did that for a few years, and I started working on campaigns. And to be honest, I kind of got burned out on it. Campaigns are tough work when you're out there on the street all the time doing advocacy. And so I took a step back, and I actually went to law school. So I went to Seattle University Law School, and I studied there for 3 years, and I graduated and took the bar exam, and I'm an attorney right now. And that was my path to doing this. When I had worked in politics before for a congressman, I got to know a lot of the folks down here in Olympia. And when I was graduating from law school, one of them approached me about coming to work with him and his partner in a small firm working down here in Olympia. And I said, I think I might do that for a little while. It sounds like a lot of fun to get back into policy. And so I utilized my political science education and my law school education to be down here. Now, you don't need to go to law school to be a lobbyist, but a lot of lobbyists are lawyers. And so I find that it helps me in my day-to-day job down here when it comes to researching bills, being able to draft legislation. The law school education really did help. But you don't need to be a lawyer to do this. And a lot of really fine lobbyists are not attorneys. But that was my path.
Do you still practice law?
Sometimes, when mainly for friends and family, when they want a little bit of side work done. I do a little incorporation work for people on businesses, and the fun things like drafting a will, things like that, the easy stuff.
Thank you.
You bet.
Hi, my name's Alexis, and I was wondering what's your favorite part about being a lobbyist?
So my favorite part is really just getting to know people down here. And like I said, work on policies that I care about. I've been lucky to have clients that I really like. When I got started with my two old partners, and I say old, they're both in their 70s and 80s now, and they're retired. But when I got started with them, they had a really good list of clients that I liked. And I learned early on that it's no fun being down here if you don't like what you're working for and who you're working with. And that's what I like about this job, is there are a lot of great people around here, and I have the chance to work on issues that I really care about, like those fire issues or like the tribal issues that I've mentioned. Those are the things that I really enjoy about being down here.
What's your least favorite part about being a lobbyist?
Probably working with elected officials and politicians. That can get a little tiresome. Politicians have a tendency to be difficult at times. And I'll just say that, what I mean by that is that everybody's got their own idea on how to do things. And it can be a challenge sometimes to navigate that and make sure that you're doing what your client wants you to do, but also what the politician wants to get done. And so trying to navigate that can be a challenge at times.
Thank you.
You bet.
Hello, my name is Denny. I want to ask, how exactly do you become a lobbyist?
Well, there's no one way. I'll say it that. I'll say that first. A lot of people who become lobbyists did what I did, which is I worked in politics. I was a staff person for a congressman, and I got to know a lot of people. And for some reason, they got to like me. I did good work. And when it came time to make a career decision, I decided that I wanted to go down this route of being on the lobbyist side as opposed to the staff side. So you see a lot of former staffers become lobbyists. You also see a lot of former politicians become lobbyists. So a lot of people who were elected to office, who get to know the system, they become lobbyists. And my old mentor used to joke that there are only 3 things you need to become a lobbyist. You have to know the players, so you have to know who's who. You have to know the game, meaning you have to know the system, how a bill becomes a law, all of that. And then finally, you have to have a client willing to pay you. That's kind of the third thing. And so as long as you've got those, then you can become a lobbyist. But to answer your question, there's no one way. I went to law school and I got to know people and I came back into politics. A lot of other people might be lobbyists because they come from inside a company. Now, if you're a big company like Boeing, you might have an internal person that you send down to Olympia to advocate for you. And you might be an attorney for Boeing, or you might be an in-house person doing something else. But then they come down to Olympia. I'm a contract lobbyist. So I go out and I talk to people, and people come and hire me from a multitude of different sectors. And so there's no one way to do it. But I tell you, the best way is just to be around it. You have to know the players and you have to know the game.
So what exactly does it mean to be a lobbyist for you?
For me, it means that I get to advocate on behalf of my clients. I get to work on policy I'll give you an example. Here's a good example of how this works. One of my clients will take the fire chiefs, because I've mentioned them. They might come to me with a problem, and they'll say, Dylan, here's an issue that we're having. something isn't working right, or we think that there's a way to improve something with the fire service. Okay. So then I look at it and I say, well, what can we do? Do we need to change the law? Do we need to maybe work with the governor's office? And maybe we don't need a change in the law. We just need a state agency to do something differently. Or maybe, maybe we need to enforce the current law that's already on the books as opposed to changing it. So they come to me with problems. And my job is to come up with a solution for them. So I help them craft a solution to whatever problem they've got. And sometimes that means changing the law. And that means that I get to draft a bill that will do something, and I'll get to work with the politicians and the elected officials, the senators and the representatives, to find a sponsor. And then we push that. This year, for my clients, like I said, I've got about 15 or so different entities that I work for right now. And I've probably got, 50 or 100 bills that I'm working on right now that are important to various clients of mine. And so what does it mean, to be a lobbyist on that front? It means that I get to push for changes to the law or enforcement of the law that'll improve my clients' standing. Does that make sense?
I was asking more on like a personal level.
On personal level, what does it mean to me to be a lobbyist? Well, it means that I'm engaged in the system, and that's what I like. To me, it's really important to give back. And I think that it's really important for people to be engaged in the civic process. That's one of the reasons that I was looking so forward to meeting with you guys and talking about this. Because to me, what it means to be a lobbyist is it means to be engaged in the political system. And it means that you get to work on things that can effectuate change for a lot of people. When you pass a law in Washington, it doesn't just affect one person, it affects everybody. And that to me is really fun. That's one of the things that I take away from this is at the end of the year, I can look up and I'll say, that law, I had a hand in that. And so to answer your question, what does it mean to be a lobbyist for me? It means that I get to be part of the system, and I like that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Amor.
Hi.
And my question was, if net neutrality is repealed, then what would happen for schools? Since schools use it a lot, use a lot of internet and different free websites, what would happen? Do they still have to pay, or would it be something special for the schools?
So the repeal of the rules, I'll say it this way. It's possible that nothing would change.
Mm-hmm.
These are rules that guide companies' behavior. So they don't have to necessarily change their behavior just because the rules aren't in place. And so it's possible that nothing will change. What could change, though, is that you could see some companies start to charge more for things like video streaming services, or maybe Comcast wants to charge more for you to be able to download Netflix at home, things like that. And so that's something that could happen as a result of it. For schools, again, it's possible that they could decide that because you're looking at, you need to have video streaming services, you need to have access to all sorts of research opportunities. If those are heavily used, they could say, we could make more money if we charge a little bit more for all of those types of things. And so you could see schools have to spend more money, just like a regular family might have to spend more money. But again, it's important to know that just because the rules are possibly being repealed and not set up again, it doesn't necessarily mean that anything will change. But that's one of the reasons that we have so many bills right now on this topic in Olympia, because the state legislature wants to make sure that nothing bad happens, that you don't see schools have to shell out more money for basic things like research or video, things like that. And so hopefully some of these bills can move forward and we can stop worrying about what might happen.
Do you ever help to draft bills?
I do. I actually drafted a bill just yesterday for a client of mine. And it's fun because what happens is I get to put my lawyer hat back on and take a look at how the law currently reads, and then go in and make line by line changes if it's already a law that's on the books, or like the one I did recently, I invented a whole new law and came up with the wording that that would work for my client and also for our prime sponsors. And so, you know, that's a lot of fun for me. Like I said, it gets me, I get to put my lawyer hat back on and do things like that, which is a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Casey, and I was wondering if, since you're a lobbyist, do you have to move around a lot, or just?
So I live in Seattle, and I drive down to Olympia most every day, and I usually drive home at the end of the night, which takes me about an hour and a half or so, and I'm on the road a lot. But when I'm down here, I don't have a desk or anything that I'm sitting behind all day. I'm usually on my feet. I'm walking around. I'm talking to people all day long. And that's one of the things that I actually like most about this job. I'm a people person. I like talking to people, although I do get a little tired of it sometimes. At the end of the night, sometimes I don't want to talk to anybody. But, you know, it's a lot of fun. I get to be on the move a lot. I get to be walking, talking, and seeing new people and new places all the time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Calvin, and I was wondering, what made you want to become a lobbyist?
So what made me want to become a lobbyist, when I worked in Washington, D.C. for a congressman, I saw that there were a lot of things that needed to be done to improve our country and our state. And I went to law school thinking that maybe that would be a way to get a better education and learn how to do some of these things that I wanted to do, whether it was criminal justice reform or education reform, things like that. And so I went to school because I really wanted to study those types of things. And when I got out of school, when law school was finishing, I figured, you know, I could go practice law, and I could sit behind a desk all day, or I could become a lobbyist, and I'd get to work on those very same policies. I'd get to change laws and impact policy without being tied down in an office all day. You know, I get to do this while being out and about talking to people. And so that really appealed to me. That was one of the reasons I wanted to become a lobbyist, because I'd get to do work on policy issues, but also get to do it on my own terms. I'm my own boss. I have a lot of clients that I like, and I can choose who I work for. And that's a lot of fun for me.
If you could meet your 8-year-old self, do you think you would be proud of what you've grown into?
I really do. And that's a really great question. You know, it's hard when you're 8 years old to know exactly what you want to do. I actually wanted to be a lawyer when I was young, and so I am today. And even though I don't practice law in the traditional sense of going to court every day, I still get to do a lot of the things that are part of that job. And so I do think so. And that's a really fun question. It's fun to think about.
Well, thank you.
You bet.
Hello, my name is Natalie, and I was wondering why you wanted to do this program and talk to our class about what being a lobbyist is to you.
Well, Natalie, the reason I wanted to do this is because I really believe in civic education. And what I mean is, I really personally believe deep down that we need more people and more young people to be engaged in the system. It's really easy for people to think that working in politics is some far off thing, that it's inaccessible to the average person. And I really disagree with that. I think what makes this system great in our country and in our state is people just like you get involved and get active and care about an issue, and you can make your voice heard. And so I really wanted to reach out and talk to students about how they can get engaged, and that it's not scary to get engaged. It's actually pretty easy. And that's one of the things that I want to work with you guys on this session, is if you find an issue or two issues, whatever it be, that you really want to follow and work on, that I can show you that this is not a scary, far off world, but it's something that's very easy and very interesting that you can get involved in too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Carter, and I was wondering about like your opinion on the pollution and what we can do to stop global warming from happening.
Well, Carter, I think that one of the things that you're seeing this session in Olympia, and I'll couch it this way, there are a lot of bills right now on climate policy, climate change here in Olympia. And one of the things, you know, what's my opinion on it? I think that it's pretty clear that that we've got some sort of climate change going on. And I think that human elements do play a part in that. And one of the things that our governor is working on is trying to figure out a way to incentivize businesses not to pollute so much. And so that's why he's proposed a carbon tax this year. And that actually received a hearing earlier this week on a big bill that would charge businesses and individuals a little bit, but mainly businesses, for the pollution that they emit into our environment. And so it's going to be hard to legislate our way out of this, if that makes sense. It's going to be hard to pass bills that cover everything. Really, what I think needs to happen is we do need some policy changes, but we also need our individual folks, just like all of us here, to step up and make a commitment to not polluting our environment.
Will, because I think the governor, he passed a protection law for net neutrality. Will that still be in effect if since the FCCA already repealed it or already voted on it? If it does get repealed, will Washington still be affected by it or no?
Well, so part of the FCC ruling was an attempt not to let states be able to individually go back and do certain things on net neutrality. Our attorney general and our governor are saying, whoa, 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 slow down. We still get to control what goes on in our state. And so the governor's proposals and the attorney general have been working with legislators on net neutrality issues to make sure that we can pass our own rules to govern what happens here in Washington state, regardless of what happened with the federal rules from the FCC. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
That's why we have so many bills on that this year.
Thank you.
All right.
Hello, my name is Mason. I wanted to ask, I know you already kind of answered this question, but do you think that working in Olympia is much better than working in Washington, D.C.?
Much better. Much, much better. So working in Washington, D.C., I kind of say it like this, that you end up working your tail off just to tread water, by which I mean it takes years and years for bills to become laws in Washington, D.C. Here, I can look at the end of every legislative session, which starts in January and ends in either March or April or May, or last year it went all the way until July. But I can look up at the end of every year and say that I had a hand in passing, X number of laws or changing X number of laws. And that to me is really great. It keeps you going. Working in the other Washington, it has its charms. There's a lot of great history and a lot of fun things to do out in Washington, D.C., but the day-to-day work is a lot more fun down here, I think.
What was the most exciting bill to be part of, and what was the most boring?
Well, I could probably name a lot more boring bills than I could exciting ones. I don't know how excited you guys get about repealing expiration dates on certain bills, or a big property tax. Yeah, see the excitement right there. I've learned far more about property taxes than I ever planned to or wanted to. And fun words like pro-rationing and all of that good stuff when it comes to property tax reform. So there's a lot more boring bills than there are exciting ones. But I'll tell you one bill that I really enjoyed working on. So you guys aren't too far away from OSO, where they had the big slide a couple of years ago. And I worked on a bill after that clarified the law and made sure that firefighters who respond to all sorts of things, not just fires, but also other disasters like slides and earthquakes and things like that. I passed a bill or worked on a bill that became law that made it very clear that we could utilize fire resources to go in and help on that type of incident. And that was one of the ones that I was most proud of. And so, it really goes to show you that there's a lot of different things and a lot of different topics that can come up. And like I said, a lot of it might be kind of boring, but you enjoy the ones that you can do. And, and that was one that was really important and I really enjoyed working on.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, me again. So I was just wondering, the federal government, of course, we backed out of the, G20 summit. We didn't go with a big plan to help the environment with pollution. So do you think that if we pass state laws, that the federal government will hammer down on us?
Not necessarily. And so that's a really interesting topic of kind of separation of powers, not in the traditional sense of which branch of government does things, but in the whole states' rights context. And so when President Trump backed out of the Paris Accord, what you saw is a lot of states, not just Washington, but California, Oregon, a lot of other states step up and say, you know what? Just because the president pulled us out doesn't mean that we're not going to abide by all of those rules. And so we still have the ability within our state to come up with rules and guidelines that govern our behavior here. And so what you're going to see, I think, a lot of times is when the president does something or when there's a national trend that goes one way as opposed to another, states like Washington can be leaders. And I don't think that the federal government's going to be able to come in and tell us that we can't pass certain environmental issues or even net neutrality, even though they're trying to say that. And so, in answer to your question, no, I don't think the federal government's going to be able to come in and shut down our efforts on that. And so I think that that's one of the reasons that you see Governor Inslee trying to lead on these issues.
So a lot of big businesses like Amazon and Microsoft were kind of shunning the Paris Accord deal of us backing out. Do you think that some lobbyists are working with those big companies to help, with all the laws of carbon pollution?
Without a doubt. And actually, you've seen a lot of big businesses like Microsoft come out and support the carbon tax bill. A lot of the industrial companies are very concerned about what it would do to drive up their costs. But a lot of the other companies like Microsoft and some of the more progressive companies that we know of are actually been supporting that effort. And so it's a really interesting mix. And you see lobbyists on both sides of that working really hard here in Olympia right now.
Thank you.
You bet.
Okay, as you can see, the students are very excited about specific issues and are really interested in the work that you're doing and the work of other lobbyists. And I really appreciate all your very frank and honest answers to all the questions that we posed to you today. It is time for our students. We have to pack up because the bell is going to ring soon.
All right.
But thank you so much for coming, everyone.
Thank you. Guys, we'll look forward to talking soon.
Thank you.